do with this chance to be free? And I invite you to close your eyes if they are not already closed, and to take some nice, deep, relaxing breaths. Breathing in and out. And in and out. And in and out. And with each breath in and each breath out, you become more aware of and more centered in the truth of who you really are. The truth about life is the infinite love of God for all things. Each person is bound to me by immortal and everlasting ties. I love all people. They dwell in my Father, and my Father in them. I surrender my heart to humanity, and humanity serves me with love. I surrender my heart to God, and the love of God becomes complete in me. I am one with all the power and vigor and knowledge of the universe. I let go of fear and confusion. They are illusions and cannot live with truth, which is love, which is complete and fulfilled in me now. The great reality of universal subconscious mind is forever present at the center of my being. I draw from it perfect intelligence, perfect health, perfect peace, perfect happiness, and perfect love. I surrender all the built-up inhibitions that have been impressed upon me by the illusions of the world. I refuse to accept anything but truth, which is always the good and the positive. I move in accordance with divine intelligence. I accept the will and love of God, which I express in laughter and joy and pleasure and service. Only the good, the great, the significant, and the constructive do I add to myself. Nothing else is allowed into the creative depths of my being. The surging desire of each person is to know the fulfillment of love. The way to this fulfillment is through contact with the center of consciousness, through communion with the silent dweller within. I surrender my doubts and confusion and fears. Universal love is complete in me. I am united with God, move with God, I am serene and sure, joyful and achieving. I am confident of ultimate splendor. And now we'll have a song.
Good morning again. Okay, this song is called There's Another Way. Singing my favorite artist, my new favorite artists again, J.D. Martin and Jan Garrett. You can find them on empowermusicma.com and download their music, but they're my new favorite, so you're going to hear a lot of songs from them. This one is called There's Another Way, if I didn't say that before. Yes. Bang that drum, rattle that saber, shoot first and ask questions later. It just ain't practical to love your neighbor. Ooh, it's a crazy world. Let's make a circle out of that line. Think about us, not just yours and mine. There's another way, beyond the blue and gray, where we all can lay our weapons down. There's a brighter light, beyond the wrong and right. If we let it shine tonight, we'll learn to live again another day. There's another way. Another way. Still that anger, unclench that fist. Feel the power of forgiveness. There's a new sun rising in the morning mist. Ooh, it's a beautiful world. Flesh and blood were born out of the stars. I can't help believing somewhere in our heart there's another way, beyond the blue and gray, where we all can lay our weapons down. There's a brighter light, beyond the wrong and right. But if we let it shine tonight, we'll learn to love again another day. There's another way. Yeah. Oh, another way. There's another right, beyond the wrong and right. If we let it shine tonight, we'll live to love again another day. Oh, yeah, there's another way. I pray, yeah, another day. Another day. Oh,
Have you ever had the situation in your life when things were going along very nicely and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, some huge challenge showed up? Has anybody had that experience? Never. I might be following you. And have you ever asked yourself, how am I ever going to handle this? Did it ever seem so overwhelming? Unfortunately, that has happened to me on more than one occasion. And it happened to me last year. At the end of 2020, my husband and I moved from New Jersey to Florida, which is a dream of ours. We always wanted to move down here, and we were finally making this change. And at the beginning of January of 2021, we signed the contract for our beautiful home to be built. This was a home we had been waiting for about 7 years, and now we were finally going to get it to be built. We were so excited, and we figured, after 2020 and all of the hardships that everybody went through, we thought that 2021 was going to be one of our best years ever. My husband had a swelling in his body, and it got bigger and bigger. So he went to the doctor, and the doctor ordered some tests. And by the end of January, we found out that he had a very rare and aggressive form of cancer. I was devastated. I'm like, here we're waiting for so many years to have our dream home to be built, and I wasn't sure if I was going to move into that home by myself because my husband was not going to be here. I was filled with such fear. We got my husband into a clinical trial up at Moffitt in Tampa. And we went there every 2 weeks, and he had some ups and some downs. It was a very challenging year for us. And it was about to get worse, because in the fall of 2021, I was diagnosed with cancer also. When life throws me a curveball, when I am experiencing some things on the outside that seem to be so difficult and so fearful, I always go to one place. And the place that I always go to is the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd. Because the talk or the daily word was inspiration. That inspires me. It inspires me to know the truth of the goodness and the love of God. And that helps me get my thoughts away from fear and desperation and, oh my God, back to truth and love. And one of the people who inspires me tremendously with regard to the 23rd Psalm is a man named Joel Goldsmith, who is a very well-known New Thought leader. And I wanted to share with you his interpretation of the 23rd Psalm because it is very different than anything I'm sure you've ever heard before. But it becomes my anchor when I need to get my thoughts straight. And there were some handouts in the back. If you don't have it, you might want to go along with me. Does everybody have a copy of it? Okay. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. So Joel says, think upon this form of this prayer. There is no turning to God, no trying to reach God, no old-fashioned petition, not even the new style of affirmation. There is only the recognition that since God is, and God is my shepherd, my individual shepherd, guide, protector, guard, maintainer, and sustainer, because this is true, I shall not want. There is no question at all. There is confidence. There is assurance. I shall not want. Very often when people are dealt a challenge, they pray. but they do the bargaining kind of, or the pleading prayer. Oh, God, please, please help me, please help me, please. Or the bargaining kind of prayer. God, if you do this, I promise I'll go to Sunday services, I'll deal with, I'll teach at junior school, I will do this. Please just help me. The problem with that kind of prayer is it is very fear-based. And when someone does engage in that kind of prayer, there's a belief on some level that perhaps God might not be in the mood to give me what I want. But when we know that the Lord is our shepherd, we automatically start to feel a deep sense of peace because we know that this shepherd will take care of us because we are the beloved ones. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. And Joel says, not only does he provide green pastures, but notice this, he maketh me to lie down in them. It is not a matter of choice as to whether you want to lie down in green pastures or not. Nor is it a matter of punishing you for your sins by keeping you out of the green pastures. It is simply that he maketh me to lie down in green pastures. You should feel a sense of release as you realize that the burden is no longer on your shoulder to govern yourself, maintain yourself, sustain yourself, or even to find the right kind of prayer. God's love and goodness is with us always. And God only wants each one of us to experience the highest and best good that we could possibly imagine. And the universe is really slanted in our favor. The good is here. And we have to really work hard to get out of the good. And we don't have to deserve the good. It is our divine heritage. So we may have been thinking negatively for decades. We may not know the right kind of prayer. We may have a struggle to try to think positively, but as soon as we do, the good rushes in. I am wearing a necklace that is very near and dear to my heart. I got it as soon as I found out that my husband had a very aggressive form of cancer. It is a mustard seed. And the reason, every time we went for treatments, I would hold on to this just to remind myself that I just need to remember the slightest bit, have the slightest bit of faith of knowing that the good was a possibility, to know that everything could be transformed. So the good is already for you. It is here waiting for you to just turn to the divine, to God, to say, okay, let it in. I'm ready. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I think I don't deserve it. I do because I'm a child of God. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Joel says, observe all the way through. There is no attempt to gain God's favor, no attempt to seek God's goodness, no attempt in any way to reach out for God, just the constant, confident assurance. Even though my soul has been scarlet with sin or unrestful in sickness, yet he restoreth my soul. And though I be tempted with desire, yet for his name's sake, he leadeth me out of sin into righteousness, out of disease into the rightness of health. God is always with us. We are not meant to struggle. We are not meant to live little lives. This center is to allow everybody to reach their full potential, and that is really a divine desire for God in each of us. We are meant to be as much as we want to be. Whatever that is, whether it's big, it's small, it doesn't matter. Whatever your heart wants, that is God's desire for you. And that is what God is already giving to you if you are open to it. You don't have to get it. It is already yours. You just have to allow it to flow through your lives. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. He says, as you have experienced periods of trial and tribulation, serious illness, family troubles, lack, limitation, loss of fortune, has it not seemed natural to feel that somehow you have become separated from God? For some reason, God was not with you? We touch that valley of the shadow of death or lack and limitation or unemployment or whatever the error may be, and we begin to fear. You can only experience fear if you believe that in the midst of your discords and inharmonies, God has deserted you. This fear begins for one reason only: lack of the full realization that God is going through the valley of the shadow of death with us. What difference does it make what particular trial you are going through, as long as you know with all the confidence within you that God is walking through the valley of the shadow of death with you? God is walking through the trial with you. When my husband and I went for his treatments, as I told you, it's every 2 weeks, up to Tampa. I live in Port St. Lucie, 3 hours each way. When we went into the center, I had to remember that God was right there. God was in my husband. God was in the doctors, the nurses, the technicians, the people who were registering us. God was in the medication. I had to know in my heart that God was fully present in all of it. And because I know that God is love, I know that God is love, I know that God is goodness, I know that God can change anything and everything. Because I was able to get into that consciousness, I was actually able to get through it. It was a challenging year. And I had to force myself to turn away from what they said. I remember the first oncologist said, "Oh, this is not good. This is not good." I had to force myself to turn away from that and to say, no, God is here. What difference does it make? God is here. And because God is here, all will turn out well. Have you ever had any kind of situation in your life where you felt that God wasn't with you through a challenge? When you think about the idea that God is with you, does it change how you relate to the challenge? Yes. And how would it be different? What would be the difference for you?
I see the possibility and I see hope.
Yes, yes, yes. Remember, God as love, God as law, created this entire universe from nothing. Do you think it could fix our problems? Do you think it could handle a disease or financial difficulty or anything? Yes, we want to get back to that place because we usually just focus on the fear. But we want to recognize that we're not by ourselves. We're not alone. It's not just us trying to get through it. God is right there with us, always walking with us side by side, in us, outside, through everything, always ready, willing, and able to turn everything to good. Thy rod and thy staff, they comforteth me. Joel says, whatever you are going through, there is a staff to lean upon, and there is a rod to keep you in line. There is some form of discipline. There is some form of teaching. There is some form of spiritual help to lean upon. You must know this with all your knowing and then act with complete confidence in that knowing. God's grace will always manifest in the human form of rod, staff, food, or whatever, this grace appearing as my good comforts me. We're lucky because we have this teaching. Most people have no clue of what's really going on in life. They see the condition, they see the circumstances, they feel like they are victims and they have no choice. But we know the truth, and we know that when we are faced with a challenge, it's because of an error of belief on some level. That's the only reason it's there. And when we correct that idea, and when we go to our teaching, Joel Goldsmith, one of my other favorites, Emily Cady. I love Emily Cady, Lessons in Truth. I would read that for so long. When we are able to go to those ideas of truth, they can get us back on track. I tell my husband, I cannot imagine living my life without knowing the truth of God. I can't even imagine. It must be so, can you imagine? If you didn't have this teaching, how fearful life would be. So you can, if you're in a situation and you're afraid, you go grab one of your books. Again, I love Lessons in Truth, or How I Use the Truth, or Eric Butterworth, or Ernest Holmes, which is my where I got my license from. You want to go back to that because that is going to take your thoughts away from the fear and the doubt and the panic, and it's going to get you back on track to knowing the truth, and the truth must out itself. The truth will heal any and every condition. Thou preparest a table for me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointeth my head with oil, my cup runneth over. And Joel says, here again is a simple affirmation of what is. No petition, no seeking God, merely a statement. This is high prayer, where lack and limitation threatens, God's grace prevails. Again, this is a very important part of the psalm that I go to, because it helps me to realize that it does not matter what is showing up. It doesn't matter at all, because God's good and God's love can heal every and any condition. What we have to do is take our attention away from the situation and focus on truth. Focus on God. The theme for this month is love. God's love heals everything, everything. And that's where you want to put your focus. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. Now this is, I want you to really pay attention to this. Joel says, once you realize that God cannot operate today and not tomorrow, you have touched one of the highest concepts of prayer. If you can acknowledge that at any time in your experience you have known the result of prayer, that is, you have had a healing through spiritual means, or if at any time in your life you have had an evidence of the presence and power of God, actually, you should never have to be concerned again, because that one evidence to you of God's presence should be enough to make you say, surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, all the days. How can God be with you today and not tomorrow? How can God manifest or express itself one day and not the next day? Is there any possibility that God will stop your blessings as long as you have a need? Why should you ever have to question? I started reading Joel's interpretation of the 23rd Psalm in 1998 because my husband was unemployed for 2 years. And We were being sued for over $1 million for an auto accident. See, I tell you, the universe gives me lots of fun stuff to think about. And that lawsuit lasted for 4 years. But God showed up in my life. And anytime I am faced with a new challenge, of a situation where I'm feeling real fear, I go back to those ideas. I go back to those times when God was there, because God is changeless. People think when something new shows up that, oh my God, I just have to deal with this by myself and all this. If you have ever had an experience of having God show up in your life as a healing, that is enough. Who has had an experience where you know that you did spiritual work, prayer, whatever else, and God showed up and it was resolved? Oh, look at you. Okay, so who wants to share? Give us an example of what it is that you went through and how God's healing showed up. Would you like to share? Sure, absolutely.
My mother was diagnosed with dementia, and the fear of how we were going to care for her as we watched her separate from us in our mind, and the debilitating fear of what our next move was. And every time we prayed, it was miraculous. God took our hands and showed us the way when we didn't have an answer. And sometimes it was within minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was resolved.
Absolutely. And that is, and my mother-in-law had dementia. I know that also is not an easy thing to go through. What happens with people very often is they realize in their past that God showed up as something wonderful, holding your hand, within minutes and so on. But when they're faced with the new thing, they forget about it. And you want to remember, I tell my students to keep a journal of all of the manifestations or the demonstrations that they have experienced personally, because that is what is going to help them build their faith in the current situation. Because God is changeless. If God helped you before, God is going to help you now. Because God, there is no time in God. God is always the same, and we want to remember that. That becomes an anchor point. I'm going to invite you to use that situation whenever you might be faced with a new challenge, because you're going to say, no, wait a second. No, been there before, was there this, when this and this. I know that God will be here now too. That is an easier way to focus your faith, and your faith is what is going to allow the healing to occur. I go to that all of the time. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And Joel says, and finally, I will dwell in God consciousness forever. But that is a decision. That's a choice. That is not something that just happens. We have to make a decision to live in God consciousness forever. When my husband was unemployed, when we were being sued for this auto lawsuit, I spent literally hours, sometimes 5-6 hours with all of my New Thought books. That's why I got to really know Emily Cady, and I had them all in my bed. I remember so clearly, because I was going to Sunday services, I was taking some classes, but I was not living in the consciousness of God at all times. And it would take so many hours for me to read these beautiful ideas of truth to get my attitude up from my toes and into my head. But now, I'm doing this all the time. This is who I am. I live this way. This is not something I do on a Sunday. I am always in the consciousness of God, because for many years I have trained my brain to do that. And Joel says, it is only as we live constantly in that assurance of God's presence that we can say in the form of any trouble, I will not fear, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, because I know thou art with me. What difference does it make what experience I go through if I am sure that God is with me? So how do you have that consciousness? You have to commit to it. You have to, and I'm not talking about once in a while, every day do some type of spiritual process. multiple spiritual practices. You pray, you meditate, you do affirmations, you read spiritual truth. You do this on a consistent basis because that is how you will be able to face whatever challenge may be in front of you and pull your thoughts back from it and say, nope, I know. My favorite statement, I know in whom I do believe. Because I have all these experiences of my own where God showed up at the right and perfect time. The lawsuit, it was 4 years, which is as long as you can have an auto suit. 4 years at the end of the trial, that's when the healing came. 4 years. But you have to constantly pay the price. Ernest Holmes, who was the founder of Science of Mind, said, you can have anything you want in life, but you must pay the price in spiritual coin. And that means you must do the spiritual work to get the result that you want. If you knew that God was with you in everything, would your life be different? Would it be different? If you really knew it, not just here, I mean here. Yes, yes. This is the gift you give to yourself, the gift of knowing that you are not alone. But I'm not going to just talk to you about knowing the Lord as your shepherd. I'm going to invite you now to think of something that you're currently facing where you would like to know more completely for yourself that God is right there. You want to feel that support, and you want to know that God is going through this with you. So just bring something to mind and just close your eyes. And I'm going to read the Lord as my shepherd, but as I read these words, I would like you to feel that God is there. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comforteth me. Thou preparest a table for me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. So, do you feel a little bit more supported now? More peaceful? Any other insights that you might have picked up from this? Anybody? So you want to remember this. This is the gift you give to yourself, to remember it. Does anybody want to know what happened to my story? In November, I was declared cancer-free. In December, my husband was declared cancer-free. And on February 8th, we moved into our dream home. No matter how spiritual you are, the challenges are going to show up. But what you want to remember is you are never alone. You are never alone. Though sometimes it may feel that way, you are never alone. All you need to do is to turn to God, to just say, look, I'm trying to have faith. A mustard seed, that's all I can do right now. I'm turning to you. I know that you're good. I know that you're love. I know that you're all power. That's all you need to do, and continually to turn your focus back to God's goodness and love. Because God loves each and every one of us so much and is always ready, willing, and able to do everything for us if we allow it. God is good. God is love. God is everywhere present. So the truth is, all is well.
Thank you, Della. You know, I could probably shorten her bio, call her just a powerful prayer warrior.
Yes.
And I'd like to say our truth here at Unity of Vero is we are a thriving, abundant community. And I want to say thank you because that's because of your generosity in giving. And along those lines, I'd also like to remind everybody, we do have an ongoing Ministers Fund where we are having attention. We'd love to see those palm leaves get filled out. It's going on for another 2 or 3 months, so we appreciate your generosity. And ways to give. Please take your gifts in your hand and join me with our offertory prayer. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. We say, thank you, God, and so it is. And our ushers, Lolita and Walter, will be coming forward.
Lay it down and set it free. Let my heart rest and let it be. Lay it down and set it free. Lay it down on the altar of love. I was walking through the season of dark and lonely change, when the world was on my shoulders and my faith was rearranged, and knew I'd never be given more than I could bear. Then the Spirit reassured me there was an answer to my prayer. If I'd lay it down and set it free, let my heart rest and let it be. Lay it down and set it free. Lay it down on the altar of love. Left with a choice: stay in separation or listen to that voice. It beckons me to be open and be grateful for every day. It simply reminds me there can be another way. If we lay it down, set it free. Let my heart rest and let it be. Lay it down and set it free. Lay it down on the altar of love. Now it's time for all of us to sing, and not just me. Let's join in Let There Be Peace on Earth to finish our service. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, a peace that was meant to be. With God as creator, family all are we. Let's walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
And join me for our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Thank you. So if everybody would have a quick cup of coffee, and then we're going to ask everyone to stay. Members will, everyone please leave, and members, as you enter, see Barb Petrillo, she'll be at the door to sign in so we have a quorum. So I thank you very much.